Hi everyone, in this video we are going to discuss the history of nuclear power. So before we get into this, I want to be very clear that we're talking about nuclear energy used as a source of power, or energy I should say. And so in the same way that we talked about fossil fuels, so our coal, our petroleum, and our natural gas, using that chemical energy and converting it to electrical energy in a conventional power plant, now we're talking about a completely different system. So instead of using chemical energy, which is really potential energy stored in the bonds of those fossil fuels, we're actually going to look at something called a nuclear change. And we'll get into that later on. But basically, we just want to look at how we can use this mass effect, so this change in mass that releases such an insane amount of energy, how we can harness that energy and use it to light up our house or light up our office, whatever it is that you need this energy source for. So let's look at the history of nuclear power, not atomic weapons, just nuclear power. So the first nuclear power plants were originated in the late 1960s. Now, there was so much controversy around this, and you have to imagine the Americans basically dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japanese citizens. And so there's a lot of controversy about nuclear power and nuclear energy. And so what happened is we started to create a ton of different nuclear power plants right around the late 1960s. But actually what happened is in the late 1970s, so around 1978, the U.S. specifically stopped creating nuclear power plants. Okay? So we stopped doing this just because of all the controversy. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that people are scared of something that they don't understand. They don't know what nuclear energy is, but they know with Chernobyl or Fukushima that something really bad happened and they're scared. And so what we're going to do in this module is try to attack that misconception and see why this is actually a really neat source of energy. But before I go any further down that path, I want to ask you a question. How do you feel? How do you feel about nuclear energy? Okay? And I don't expect you to know anything yet. I'm just strictly curious about how do you feel. Go. All right, did you get an answer? Hopefully you did, because this is just an opinion and everybody should have an opinion about everything. So here's the thing. If I had to guess, my guess is that you said you probably are not very much in favor of using nuclear energy as a source of nuclear power, or of just power in general. And I understand that. Most people are very intimidated by it simply because all they hear is negative news. They hear the terrible things that happen at 3 Mile Island or Chernobyl or Fukushima. And so that's something that sticks in the front of someone's brain. But what we're going to do over the next couple weeks is try to break down that misconception and show you why I personally believe that nuclear energy is the best alternative source of fuel. Because remember, we're constantly comparing these to our conventional power plants, so our coal, our petroleum, or our natural gas. Those plants are anywhere between 33 and 42% efficient. That is terrible. That's such a bad efficiency. We need to find a better source of fuel. And my personal favorite is nuclear energy. So let's look at the United States, because that's where we live, and get a couple facts down here first. All right, so currently, we get about 20% of our electricity from nuclear power plants. Okay, so 20%, that's a significant amount, right? So where does that all come from? Well, we have 31 different states in the United States that have some kind of nuclear power plant, okay? It could have 1, it could have 100, okay? Definitely have a significant number. Now, the number of power plants we actually have are 62. Okay, so 62 power plants. I'm just going to call them power plants, but I'm specifically referring to nuclear power. Okay, keep those straight. This is not a conventional power plant using fossil fuels. So we have 62 power plants. Now, in those 62 power plants, we have 100 active reactors. Okay, 100 active reactors. Beautiful. So now, 31 states across the United States, 62 power plants, and within those power plants, we have 100 active reactors that are actually able to take this nuclear energy, release the mass effect, grab the nuclear energy that's all released during this process, and then harness that energy and convert it into electrical energy. It's such a magical, beautiful process. It's just, oh, I just love this chemistry. Okay, so now, how do we compare to everybody else? Let me see if I can enlarge this. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so first things first, let's look at Africa. As you might expect, Africa does not have that many operational power plants at all, okay? And actually, this is a graph of our number of reactors, so not plants, reactors, all right? So then we can look at the Americas. We see that we have a significant number of reactors. The northern section alone has greater than 100. We can also look at Western Europe here down at the bottom. That has a significant number of operational or active reactors as well. Now we can see that the red means long-term shutdown. So we've shut down a reactor, it's not active, but as you'll learn in the future, in the next couple weeks, is that we have a lot of waste and there's a lot of components that we can't just shut down a plant and walk away. You have to focus on it and you have to deal with all the waste and all the components there. You can't just walk away from that. And then the green is obviously under construction. So they have a reactor, it's just not functioning at this very moment, but they're trying to get it to be an operational reactor. So I want to leave you with just one quick question here. And so I'm going to make sure you can see this entire graph. But the question is, which continent, okay, continent, review that word if you're not familiar with it, which continent has the most operational plants? Look at the graph, figure it out, go. All right, did you get an answer? Hopefully you did. If you didn't, that's okay. All you had to do was look at the operational section. So the operational section are your blue sections in this graph. So you completely ignore red and you completely ignore green. But what we have to do is look at the ones that have two different sections. So Europe is something right away that I see. So you take the number of reactors here that are operational, so close to 120, and then look at the ones from Central and Eastern, so it's close to about 65, maybe even 70. You add those two up and you see that you definitely have the most operational reactors are in Europe, okay? Not in America, not in Asia, not in Africa. The most nuclear reactors at this point in time in 2016 are in Europe. All right, take care of yourself, drink water.